All right, my name's Gage Heskett, and this is my discussion over the literary naturalism continued and the cult of domesticity. Sorry if I said that wrong. Professor McMahon, all that stuff. So basically, again, literary naturalism. Basically, we apply scientific principles to the characters in the story. So instead of more, literary techniques, we're shown the emotional connections, or it says here the nature and the character's actions and emotions. It kind of shows that connection between what's going on around them to what they're feeling and what they're doing. And there are many traits of literary naturalism, but these three are crucial, I think, in help defining it. As said, the man versus nature, man versus self conflict there. And then two, survival and determinism being key themes of the stories. And then heredity, environment affect the human's life. So where they come from and, what's their environment is like will affect what happens in their lives. So the cult of domesticity, just kind of real quick, was basically a time period in the early 1800s, 19th century. And it coined its name because it was the idea that women were confined to only doing stuff in the household. They're, cooking, taking care of the children, and cleaning and all that, the stuff that goes along with that. And since this movement prioritized home, it was harder for women to get jobs, to get education, voicing like voting and stuff like that. It was basically saying that women were not only good, were only good for house duties and things of that nature. So challenges for women, like I said, it was hard for them to get jobs and, you know, and just get hours in general, just because they had to do so much around the house, they didn't have time. So, because they were just constantly, it was a constant cycle, week by week. Since the fathers, were working in the factories, all the responsibilities were put on women. And another major challenge women faced was that they were not allowed to vote in this era or to have their own voice. So for many women, they felt that they weren't as important as men and that they deserved better. Also, if a family lived on a farm, women are responsible for the farm garden, livestock, etc. That's just kind of a add on there. So the first one, Robin Fever, is basically showing Miss Ainsley's interaction with the waiter here. Or this is the quote I chose when she's interacting with the waiter, and she says she was evidently far less sure than her companion of herself and of her rights in the world. So this part of realism is part of realism because it shows a realistic portrayal of women's role in society and what was expected of them. An important theme here is class class and society. It shows Miss Ainsley isn't used to being heard because she's most likely in the lower middle class, unlike Miss Slade. Obviously, she's in the higher classes. This is important to the historical context of the cult of domesticity because at the time women did not have as much of a say in society and had to focus on household stuff. So Miss Ainsley just wasn't used to being heard as she was, in that scene there. And this is significant to contemporary women's rights because it shows that now, since women have more say, such as voting, as an example, it shows that women no longer must deal with that struggle like Miss Ainsley did here. And then in The Story of an Hour by Kate Chopin, and she said it over and over under her breath, free, free, free. Miss Mallard has suddenly realized her longing for freedom from her husband, since right at this point she believes that he is dead, in his accident. And she isn't used to the feeling of her voice being expressed because women at the time basically just had to do whatever the man told them to do. They didn't really have much freedom, much independence. This is part of the literary realism movement because it shows how women at that point in time were not accustomed to speak their minds freely as they wanted to. And then the theme of realism shown here is that the character is more focused on in the story than the plot. It shows more character development than plot development. And then, writing about common instances and including only realistic elements. As said before, this quote falls in the cult of domesticity era because it shows how women, were oppressed and they weren't used to being heard as much. It's also applicable to women's rights today because it shows how far they've come with being able to think and speak freely as they can today. Then finally, Charlotte Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper. This, or actually, let me try to change that. Put that quote on there. There we go. like I said, the yellow wallpaper. It does weigh on me so not to do my duty in any way. Gilman. This quote is showing that because of her condition, she's not able to perform the tasks that she usually can do, around the house. So she is just kind of weighed down by, like it says, not by the duties themselves, but by the lack of them. She's just, not used to, rest or not doing anything. She's always doing something. This piece is a part of the literal and naturalism movement because it conveys a sense of determinism and the mental conflict she's going through. So it kind of mentally, psychologically shows what she's going through instead of just saying it how it is. And then an important theme in the quote is her sense of determinism, obviously, like said before, to work outside her home and not be confined within the domestic role she's stuck with. This directly connects with women's roles in society and the cult of domesticity because it paints a picture of what Gilman believes can happen if women are limited to just these, domestic roles of cleaning and cooking and all that stuff. So she believes that they can mentally just kind of go crazy just because it's like just constant, working. I think this piece justifies the importance of women having suitable jobs for themselves instead of just performing domestic duties. Then chapter 1 test overview, I think it'll definitely help with the quote identification and discussion part because that's mainly what this discussion really was, just identifying quotes and their importance. And then I feel this will also help me on the essay portion because of just being able to, like I said, explain the importance of quotes and how they relate to what's going on in today's world. And that's my discussion 3, and hope you got some out of it. And yeah.